What's going on, YouTube? Earth Power here with CVH.
What? Sorry, Carl blew out my eardrums. How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, and we are back to bring you guys some more deck profiles in the format that we've been doing it at. So, as of last week, we finally have graphics for you. So, shout outs to Shalonge Brackets and finally sitting down with it all. But yeah, 5 Civ Control ended up beating Water, Fire, Nature, Tempo 2-1 in the stunning upset of the century. And then Lightwater Alzonius ended up beating Mana Burn 2-0, the Season 1 winner. In the fashion that if I got to be honest, I thought that's how it was going to go. We
Yep.
always saw Azonius as just being the anti-mana burn card, and sure enough, it proved its worth and ended up moving on to the round of 8 to face off against 5 Civ Control here in the coming weeks. But for this week, we have for you 2 matches: Water Fire Nature versus Dark Fire Nature. Mikey's Pliers, the play-in winner that nobody saw going the distance, and then Lightwater Dark Hydro Hurricane. That deck I can't remember what it ended up losing to. I think Fire Nature Rush last season,
Yeah, in the top
up
8.
against Water Nature Pincer Scarab, another very tempo-y deck that came out of our play-in tournament. So, without further ado, we're going to get into the profiles that you guys haven't seen yet. Water Fire Rush, excuse me, Water Fire Nature Rush, not correct, but Water Fire Rush.
Yeah, if you want to see the other profiles, they were in the play-in, so go back a couple weeks in the channel and check those out. Let's jump in.
Absolutely,
So this deck
absolutely.
is one that sort of steamrolled the play-in last season and made it all the way to the top
Yeah.
4, so it's back. And we saw Patikman in particular have success with it in the IDC. And actually, as of just recording this
The
video today,
CIDC, yeah.
oh yeah, the
That's
CIDC.
championship
Yeah,
ID, yeah.
IDC and the championship IDC. And we just saw Corile 627, the homie, another North American representative, go 6-0 in the last IDC 32 with this deck. So it's a powerful Rush deck. Maybe not the most powerful because of Fire Nature Rush existing, but definitely a contender. And I don't remember what we actually changed in this. I think we just made it closer to Patikman's version, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think if not exactly Patikman's version, we were running Surfer in the list last season, and circle back all the way to season 1 when yeah, I just let it. I say I just let it because I literally let it get beat by Declotans. But yeah, we ended up going for the Surfer engine this time. We cut some of the speed attackers, cut a few the 2 drops in Rickaboo Screwdriver, and ended up throwing Surfers back in the deck because it's just needed, right? This is the deck that can kind of go a little bit longer than Fire Nature, right? Where Fire Nature has probably the strongest first 4 turns in the meta. This deck has a strong early game, but can kind of it finds more strength in the 2 to 5 range, where it can kind of reload its hand with Lucky Ball, where it can play that Crystal Paladin and just kind of still be in the game even after potentially a wall of blockers, or even seeing a lot of this deck get handled, if you will,
Yeah, the
where
deck's
it
never
loses
getting.
out.
I was gonna say it's
Yeah,
never getting to
continue.
6
Yeah,
mana, but like it's basically a blue mana that can sometimes just single-handedly win you the game against other aggro decks. So
right,
worth that
right.
inclusion.
Right. And so, yeah, it sticks to bounce, right? The bounce of this deck is what makes it strong. Playing into Unicorn Fish, Crystal Paladin, just having a grip of Spiral Gates, and then a strong 2 drops showing. Where it loses out kind of on not having Ganta, it maintains its strength in Snip Striker, Bullraiser, leaning on cards like Spiral Gate and Unicorn Fish to make that card just ever relevant and prevalent throughout those turns 3 through 5, where your opponent might be able to get ahead of it. Unicorn Fish gives you a body and bounces one, so it's kind of a +2 swing for Snip Striker, which is what that card needs. And then Kook Balloon, you just can't attack it, right?
And attack it. Yeah, decent
So,
deck.
but yeah,
Besides that, pretty
yeah,
much the same though. So if you saw last
exactly,
season, it's gonna function hopefully similarly to that because it did pretty well.
right, exactly, exactly. But moving on to a deck that you and I have had probably more thoughts on this deck, Lightwater Dark Hydro Hurricane, than any other deck I think we've played probably in the past season and a half. This deck's come a long way, right? It used to be Marino control. Ended up just changing it completely to what kind of the meta has turned this deck into over the past couple of years.
To be fair, we
Hydro
did
Hurricane.
try Marino because it was in the play-in.
Right,
It's not
right.
it's not
But
quite here, but
yeah, absolutely. Making that more of a what do you call it, a tempo deck
Yeah.
now, but for sure, Lightwater Dark Hydro Hurricane is very much a control deck, plays like all the other mana burns does, leans on the fact that it just plays sticky cards like Mysterios and Petrova, cards that aren't easily dealt with, having a full grip of Pala just to make the card incredibly annoying and sticky. And just leaning on that engine to just get you towards the end game. This is the deck that dirtles, and it does it, I think, better than any other deck in the meta.
Yeah, this is not the. Oh, by the way, sorry if I sound a little sick, everybody. I have a head cold, so if I sound not great, it's because I feel not great. But it's okay.
I,
By the time you're
pre-
watching this, I'll be better.
I
Um,
promise they all appreciate you being here. Yeah,
yeah.
as do I.
But it's not the Gigazald version that if you're following the IDC, you might have seen Claude Alpha win with in IDC
Right.
32, because that wasn't a thing when we built this deck. We didn't know that it was good. And also, like,
Yeah.
if we're really talking about it, it would be pretty hard to fit that whole package in a 40 card shell. So that is really the pain point of building this deck in our meta for this tournament is like fitting everything you need in a 40 card shell is pretty hard. And you're drawing a lot of cards with Mysterios and streams too, but you really can't
Right.
cut them because you need to see them. Otherwise, you don't do anything. But some funky card choices. We got the Soul Galas in here now. 1 to 2 is pretty standard in a lot of these Hydro decks, at least the traditional ones. Still playing the spicy one of Spiral Gate and Eureka Charger. We've got the Plague in there, which was honestly mostly like a mana fixing call. Just needed another Water and Dark card because balancing colors is also really hard because light just takes up so much of your deck in this deck. But I
Right.
think we
But
landed
it's
on a
the
pretty strong 40 card version of it.
Yeah, and you say light takes up the majority of this. It's supposed to, right? Like the
Yeah.
whole point for those of you who aren't like up to speed on what Hydra Hurricane is trying to accomplish, like this deck is supposed to go incredibly wide, dirtle for however many turns is necessary to build a board of 5 to 7 to 8 creatures, play Hydra Hurricane, bounce all of your opponent's mana in 1 turn, maybe a creature or two based on the darkness section, and that's why Mara Ooze and Bloody Squeedo are still sticking around. And then you just start swinging with overpowered guardians thanks to Petrova. That's the whole point of this deck is just to, again, the word dirtle, it comes to mind, but that's all this deck's supposed to do. Build a bunch of guardians, make the deck super sticky and hard to deal with until you play Hydra Hurricane and just swing for game. Like it's very much the mana burn built with an alpha strike, thanks to the ability of Hydra Hurricane. For those of you who don't know, it's bouncing all of mana based on light creatures on the board, and however many dark creatures you're on your board, they bounce that many creatures. So
Yeah.
it's just a really, really cool thing. So,
Good
and
deck,
it's,
one of my
I mean,
favorites.
yeah, it's really well positioned right now. It's considered one of, I think, the top 5 decks in the meta, just based on IDC standards, and
I thought it
it
fell off
continues
for
to
a
prove
while,
itself.
but
Yeah.
I mean, I was strongly considering it for last IDC, and turns out Claude did consider it, and he considered a cooler version.
Yeah.
And he just straight up won the tournament. So yeah, I guess it's
In a
back in full
very
force.
Yeah, I think in a very like aggro and rush heavy meta, this deck shines. I mean, it has literally, I mean, look at its early curve, right? It has probably the best early game against a Russian aggro deck than any other deck in
Despite
this
getting
tournament.
2-0'd in the last in the last bracket
Right,
tournament.
right. I mean, sometimes your
Anything's
opponent just
possible.
when you roll high with 4 Ganta, yeah. So, um, it's just it's strong is essentially what I'm getting at. And it just I think it plays the best anti-rush, anti-aggro than any other deck. And again against control, again you're discarding cards out of their hand. You're still doing all of the standard control stuff. Mysterios just kind of gets away from other control decks. And again, I find it very well positioned right now. And you were considering it even
Yeah.
prior to IDC 32, and then you know,
And
obviously,
even
like we said,
33, it's
Claude.
a deck I'll probably wind up bringing it to an IDC eventually. I just really enjoy
Yeah,
playing it. So
yeah, absolutely. So unless you have any final thoughts on it, I think that's all I got.
nope, it's pretty cool. If we missed anything, last season's deck profile is somewhere too, and there's other ones online. But
Yeah,
stay tuned because it's playing in soon, later this week, right?
yeah. Later this week, up against Water Nature Pincer, very tempo heavy deck. You guys saw it in the Octagon match I played against Christian, uh, whatever play-in match that was, and then we played it against Water Nature Pincer ended up beating Light Fire Rush, and just having enough stuff and enough balance to make it through. And again, it's one of those things where you feel like it seems well positioned against a control deck, but all those blockers, hopefully Water Nature Pincer can get there, but we'll see. And then, yeah, Water Fire Rush up against Dark Fire Nature Mikey's Pliers. Obviously, you know how these matches go. I liked having X-Boom in the booth last week, so I was able to get his predictions pregame. But yeah, Water Fire Rush, one of our top 4 contenders, continuing to look strong after season 1. And obviously, outside of
Or
Hydro
2.
Hurricane
We're
getting
on
beat
season
by
3 now,
Rush.
good buddy.
I said, yeah, outside of
Yeah.
season 1
Oh,
is where it
outside
got
of season 1. Yeah,
bodied.
yeah,
Yeah.
true. You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That
Water
build
Fire Rush did
sucks.
well last season. Yeah. It's just that, well, I sucked is really what that comes down to. But, here we are. But yeah, guys, stay tuned. Water Fire Rush, Dark Fire Nature, Mikey's players coming at you here in a few days, and then Hydro Hurricane, Water Nature Pincher finishing out the week, and we'll have some more deck profiles coming at you next week for all these decks that you've seen before, but maybe don't want to hear us rant on about for too long.
Yep.
So, hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, comment down below, and until next time, guys. Peach.
Each.